All right, and we are back. Thought I'd talk a little bit about some foreign issues. Basically, what's going on with the UK and the Brexit situation. So, Boris Johnson, the UK's Prime Minister, wants to go ahead and enact a no-deal Brexit by October 31st on Halloween, right? This is something that's been going on for about 3 years now. Um, Basically, the UK had a referendum to where the people voted whether or not to remain in the EU or to leave it. And the vote was to leave. Somehow they've managed to stall this for about 3 years, just kicking the can on down the road. Um, the whole thing is basically a vote on globalism versus populism. Um, the UK has not been receiving the best benefits out of the European Union, especially since they are one of the major economies that contribute to the Union. The the people over there uh, are pretty divided on this, especially in the government itself. So Johnson, after Theresa May, the former prime minister, boggled the whole thing. She was a Remainer, didn't want to do Brexit anyways. So it's no surprise that her negotiating skills fell short. But Johnson said, screw it. We're just going to pull out, no deal. We'll enact our Commonwealth, right? The Commonwealth states like Canada, uh, Australia, New Zealand. We'll get trade going with them. We'll hatch a trade deal with America. We can still get trade deals with European Union member states, right? There was a UK before the European Union, and it seems a lot of people forget that. In fact, it was the largest empire in the world at one point. They'll be fine, but there's a lot of fear. uh, Something that happens when you pull out of an economic union like that. There's going to be a lot of economic instability at first. People will lose their confidence in the exchange, stock exchange. The economy will falter a little bit, but overall they will be fine long term. So Johnson's trying to pull out. He went ahead and decided that he was going to suspend Parliament for a period of 5 weeks. Got the Queen, who calls Parliament into session, to go ahead and suspend it, which hasn't sat well with the rest of the delegates. So the ministers took a vote to stop a no deal Brexit, right? Bind Johnson's hand. Hey, you cannot leave the UK without a deal, which is basically just saying you're not going to leave the UK. The only deals that have been offered basically been, vassal state deals to where they're still paying in and following the European Union's rules, but they won't even have a vote at the table, so to speak, if you even want to call it that. The European Union is mostly a bureaucratic institution, not a democratic one, which is one of the main complaints. But so yeah, no, this is just an attempt to kick the can on down the road. Um, keep the globalists pulling in all that sweet multinational money, and ignore the will of the people. It's funny because a lot of them over there are saying that what Johnson is doing, right, is tyrannical. It's to overthrow democracy, totally ignoring the fact that the UK population, the people, right, took a vote and said, hey, we want to leave. But that doesn't matter because the ministers don't want to leave. So in response to voting to bind his hands, Johnson said, "Hey, I don't think we can govern like this anymore. Let's hold a general election." Right? Uh, which is kind of crazy considering that the Conservatives, Johnson's party, have the majority uh, in Parliament right now, right? So that's pretty unheard of for him to even offer that. But what's even more unheard of is that Jeremy Corbyn, the leader of the opposition party over there in the UK, declined it. So even though he has a minority and could, if he believed that the people would will it to be so, could gain the majority by holding a general election, he declined it. Which says, all that says to me is they know that the British people want Brexit to happen, right? They're not. You don't turn down power or a chance at power unless there's an ulterior motive, and that is simply that he doesn't believe that the British people back him on this decision to stop Brexit. You know, it's like a band-aid, man. You just got to rip it off fast, right? There's gonna be some turmoil after it happens, but you got to get it over with, right? It's the will of the people, right? It's democracy, pure and simple. Um, they want to leave. Let the British people leave. There's no reason to keep doing this. Um, the EU doesn't even want the UK in anymore. You know, they're not going to give the UK any type of deal, right? Because that incentivizes other countries that aren't happy with it, mostly the Eastern Bloc, the Baltic countries. Um, it gives them incentive to leave, right? Which is crazy in of itself because they're the ones benefiting from the EU the most, and they're not happy with it, right? Basically, Germany, Germany and France, and I guess Germany is on the edge of a recession right now. Uh, run the EU, right, and basically dictate to the other countries how they will be run through all this. I don't want to call it legislation, but um, this bureaucracy, right? Because the people that are elected to the EU, they don't even get to present bills. They don't get to vote on these bills, right? So they elect this. They elect their European Union ministers, right? And they go in, and all they are is like an amendment body, right? Like a little department of the EU. And then the Commission, which is not elected, is the one that makes all the laws, right? And they kick it down to the elected officials, and they are allowed only to amend it, right? And then it goes back to them, and they legislate everything. They legislate how long the wicks on the candles that get made over there are. It's absurd, and it's just a money drain. That's the thing about bureaucracies, is once they start getting big, they have to justify their own existence, and they start tapping into everything. Bureaucracies really are a terrible part of government. They hold so much power. You know, for example, over here in the U.S., they're part of the executive branch, but the legislative branch is the one that makes the bureaucracies, right? So what they'll do is they'll be like, "Hey, we want you to do A, right? But we don't really know how to do it, so we're going to kick it over to the executive branch, right? The enforcement branch." So they give them a general guideline. Hey, this is what we want you to do, and then the bureaucracy turns and starts making all of these policies, which is what the legislative branch should be doing, and then they enforce their policies, and then further than that, they're the ones that interpret their own policies. It's a cancer, right? So the EU is just like one gigantic tumor, which is sad. We Europe is the European countries are some of our closest allies, and to see them going through something like that is mind-boggling. And to see people willingly subject themselves to it, all to scrape a few more multinational dollars into their wallets, it's disheartening. But yeah, so the UK is in crisis right now. It's pretty obvious that they're not able to govern based on what's going on. I think once Brexit does happen, because it's got to happen. It eventually has got to happen, right? Once it's done and over with, and they find out that the Earth didn't end the next day, I think they'll look back on this time and kind of laugh. But no, pay your fine to the EU for pulling out, right? Halloween, go ahead and pull out. There's no more reason to be in there. And crap or get off the pot. It's that simple. Alright? Till then, y'all take it easy. Peace out.